What kind of food excites and tingles your taste buds? Is it sugary sweet, smoked like nyama choma, or spicy burning hot? In today's episode of Next Gen Farmer, we travel across the picturesque landscapes of Tala in Machakos County to meet a vibrant spice lover who has turned her passion into agribusiness. Karen Ndunge, at only 28 years old, is making major strides in the spice trade in not only Machakos County but also across other counties.
I developed an interest in agriculture simply because I had the resources, meaning the land was there. I only needed to maybe put up a business plan, a good business plan to the person who owns the land, so that, and then come up with the seed money, which I had. I'd saved quite a few. The passion clearly just came from resources that were available, and I knew that I could make money from market-oriented farming.
Karen's passion for the chili business began from her intense love and appreciation for food. Growing up and even today, Karen likes to try different flavors of food, from sugary sweet to spicy burning hot, from different cultures. At the start of her business, however, she had thought of planting capsicum, also known as pili pili hoho, but her market was not up to it.
I wanted something that would, something to export. Chili, I'd say I have an interest in it. I'm a foodie. I like cooking, and I used to dry my own chili to get some herbs from it, different type of spices, basil, whatnot. So I will plant just a few, and then dry them myself and crush them to get the amount I need. And I thought, why not? But I'd done my research before. I wanted to find something that was lacking in the market, so that at least I can get what I'd put in it. So late last year, I did my research, and I found out that there was a very big problem. Exporters were looking for chili urgently. I have a friend called Queen. She writes for the BD. She's a journalist. I read one of her stories, and then I followed up from there, because she had interviewed a young CEO who does export for different plants. There's eggplants, chili. I interviewed him and I asked him what sort of chili they need for the export market. And usually there's the ABE, there's the Demon, which is what I'm growing here. There's the bullet chili, all kinds of chili usually we can grow here and export. And I thought this was a good market to get into because, one, I had resource, which is it's a major thing to have, because you find that somebody wants to plant something, but their biggest problem would be land. There are those who maybe would go to lease land for a specific amount of time. Maybe it wouldn't work for them, because you have to find money, you have to maybe talk to the person. Sometimes they can take it back. Sometimes you find that you need to get water and you don't know how to get it. So if you have ready resources where you are, maybe you use what you have first. So I used what I had first. I wrote up a business plan, gave it to my dad. I told him that I had the seed, had the capital to start it, and then we went from there. But the chilies, I went because I did my research last year. I found out that chili was needed in the market, and that's how I grew it. I found a market first before I grew it. So that's something I'd tell people: just don't plant it because you want to plant it. If it's market oriented, first find a buyer or a possible buyer. Maybe try one or two, so that at least you have a fallback plan once you harvest your first crop, and you know where to take it later on.
There are various hurdles along the way that Karen had to navigate. The first one being the location. She had to find a location that had a favorable climate for her chili farming and pull in resources that could help her start up. The family land that she had grown up playing in as a child would soon be the prime location for her chilies, as she later found out.
I decided to grow chili here because I had visited several agronomists and specialists who told me chili needs a very hot, humid area. Like right now, it's very hot. The weather is rainy, but it's very humid. It's hot. It's the conducive environment for the chilies to grow in. They don't like very cold areas. If chili cannot grow in cold areas, actually, it will stunt their growth. So it needs a very hot, humid place. And this is the perfect environment.
Once she received the affirmation on the suitability of the location, she had to come up with a business plan and start looking for a market.
When I drafted my business plan, it included how to grow the chili itself, and that had to be in liaison with or taking the guidelines of the exporter or your buyer. If it's for local, that's okay. You can just use any given guideline, which is usually on the internet you can find, or you visit Amira and you get different agronomists. Research yourself. But for this demon specifically, my buyer, who is an exporter, had conditions or rather guidelines on how to plant it. So I went to him, he gave me the guidelines, I followed till.
There are different varieties of chilies popular in the Kenyan market. Among them are cayenne pepper, serenade, jalapeno, bird eye, demon, and harabino. From her research, Karen knew that in the midst of all those varieties, only two would be a hotcake for her market. The first variety being demon chili.
I have two types. This is the demon type, demon F1. F1 because it's an original seed, so F1. If it's F2, it's a seed maybe gotten from this one. So it grows upright. The difference between it and the cayenne that you've seen over there is that the cayenne grows looking down, and it's quite long, and it sometimes curves. So usually it's long, very, very light greenish. This one is more of a dark, glossy green. And they're fat and maybe 5 to 6 centimeters tall. This is not yet done, but it will be like that. So if you see them maybe purpling like this, they're turning to red. So I've overstayed them here. So they're transition to become red. But usually mine I harvest while they are very glossy green like this, but it will be fatter with the help of potassium. So this will be sprayed with, we usually spray them with potassium weekly and other foliars so that they become quite strong. The fruit becomes very good. But basically the demon grows upright, and it's very tall. It's taller than the cayenne, the plant itself. It's very green. The cayenne is quite vulnerable to very many diseases. This one takes care of itself. It's resistant, yeah. It becomes very glossy, very greeny as compared to the cayenne. And it depends on the market that you have. Sometimes the market might want it red, so you let it sit here. It will turn to that purplish black color. So this is in transition to become red. It will be the glossy green, then go on to a kind of black thing. So when you remove it like this, the exporter might not want it because it's spotty. So this is what they would want: a uniform green and glossy and a certain height, because you can't also just chuck small things. You can't harvest small fruit and then you think that's going to be for export. Yeah, so basically that's the difference. This one grows going upright. The cayenne, it looks down, sort of short, very light green. This is dark green. Yeah, so that's the difference. But the growing is almost the same because you'll give it the same nutrients you're giving the other chili. So you find that the growing part, it's okay. Whatever you put on the cayenne, you can put here, because the NPKs, the foliars, the potassium, they all need the same thing to grow. So basically it grows up to my size or even higher, depending on how you're feeding it. The cayenne, I've not seen it grown to that point. It maybe gets to this point, what is this point? To mid-height. To mid-height. I think that's why it gets to its vegetative state.
The second variety Karen plants is cayenne chili, which is famous for its uncanny red color and spiciness when it comes to food. Karen takes us around the cayenne chili variety she has planted.
As you can see with this one, they are more light green. One of the differences is that the leaves, the demon one was a darkish hue of green. This is a lighter green, and the fruit itself Here you can see it's green. The green one, it grows facing downwards. The demon you saw, it's usually on the upper area and it's usually up. This one, it grows downwards and it has a sort of a curl to it. So these ones, they grow looking down. So this is yet to ripen. The fruit is there, it's green, but it grows looking down and it has a sort of a curve, just a slight curve, not all the way. So this is not the actual height. Usually it grows longer, around 7 centimeters, just like that. And then you wait for it to ripen up. So this is the huge difference is the color of the leaves and how it grows.
Preparing to farm the 2 varieties of chilies would require a couple of things from this young farmer. 2 of them being the land preparation and seedbed preparation. Chilies do well in slightly loamy, well-drained and non-acidic soils. If the pH of the soil is above 6.5, in many cases, the land becomes unsuitable. For cultivation of the chilies, Karen had to plow the land 20 to 22 centimeters deep to ensure there is enough moisture and controlled weed sprouting. For the seedbed, Karen also had to ensure that it was raised with furrows of about 15 centimeters and was protected from the notorious hot Machakos sun by mulch.
Raise your seedbed. Make sure that you allocate a place, maybe 100 or 150 meters from the main shamba, so that your transplanting will not be hectic. Your land specification should be 1 meter by 5 meters, so that lengthwise it's very long. You make sure that your soil, the one that you've put on the nursery, is very fine. Mix it with cow dung or whatever manure that you have. Usually you can use goat or rabbit. I hear people use rabbit, but mine I used cow dung. Make sure that you water it so that usually it can burn any plant, the manure itself, when it's dry without water. So you need to put a lot of water. This makes sure it's before you've planted, so you've not sown any seed. You're preparing the ground itself. If you want to go a mile further, maybe you can treat your soil first before you even put the manure and everything else. When it's still fine, you add water and then you put chemical reagents that will help with the fungicide or anything else that you want to control before you start. This obviously is done beforehand. If you know your soil is maybe has this kind of fungicides or is vulnerable to this kind of things, so you treat it before you start the planting. Here it didn't have any at that point, so we laid down the nursery, raised it up 20 to 15 centimeters above. We put the manure and then water, and then we sort of just created like rows on that length, on the 5 meters length, just small rows. You can use either a panga or even a djembe, rows, and then you sow your seed. This is on wettish ground. You remember you already wet the ground, right? You sow your seeds systematically, and then you cover it up with just a little bit of manure, a little bit, just like a handful. You just throw it across, just a handful with soil actually. And then once you cover it up, you can cover it up with mulch. You will water every day in the morning, depending on how your area is. It's quite dry in Kangundo, so you need to water it up early in the morning with the mulch on for 5 to 7 days, a week tops, or 8 days. You will see the germination has started. At this point is when you lift up the mulch, you raise the shed. The mulch acts as a shed. So you're raising the shed maybe to 20 centimeters above that bed itself. So at that point, if the mulch does not really work, you can't use it. Well, you can use a wire mesh and then the mulch, or you can use the mulch on its own.
Before we move on to the next step of transplanting the chilies, let's look at some of the conditions for growing chili. Number 1, temperature. In Kenya, the best chili growing areas include Machakos County, the Rift Valley region, and Nakuru, among others. Number 2, soils. As Karen has mentioned, the ideal type of soil to grow chili is well-drained and loamy soils. There are many rumors that Karen heard around transplanting chili seedlings. One of the rumors was how difficult, time-consuming, and expert-based the whole process was. All this, however, turned out to be as wrong can be. All Karen really had to do was ensure the open field she planned to grow them in was ready by harrowing the soil to a fine touch, applying manure, preparing the ridges at 75 centimeters apart, and doing light irrigation. When transplanting at 3 weeks, she only needed to take the seedlings in batches, cut their roots if they're too long, and apply more manure and do light irrigation again.
6 to 7 weeks, you should notice that your plants, the ones that are on the nursery bed, the height should be around 10 to 15 centimeters, 20 centimeters, and with a couple of leaves, maybe 8 to 10, and very strong. So at this point is when you do your transplanting. Before you attempt to transplant, a week or two before, you should minimize the water. Stop giving it as much water as you were giving it before to harden it, so that it's just not very soft in there. A day before you're transplanting, wet the nursery again so that it will be easier. It will loosen the soil to make it easier for you to just dig down the plant itself, transplant it to the main chamber. Yeah, depending on the specifications you'll be given by your agronomist or where you buy your chemicals. If it's organically, then also you need to do it beforehand so that the process of transplanting is not stressful to the plant. You don't, the moment you just put it there, you leave it for it to just take its time and grow, not that you put it and then you start doing other things, right? So once you've already taken care of the chamber part, you'll come transplanting day, you'll have dug your holes maybe a day before. The holes need to be filled up with the compost pit. You can either use the urine fertilizer or the compost or the goat. Usually you use that. So you dig up your hole, put fertilizer in it, wet the ground, then come and transplant. When you're transplanting, you find that there are special chemicals that will help in stress control, because you are uprooting this plant from a specific area it was, and then you're putting it somewhere else. It might die in the process. So there's chemicals that would help in stress control that you usually put in the water that you will use to transplant. For example, if I'm to transplant this plant, you cut it off the ground, and then you'll put it in a kasuku. So because when they're in the seedbed, they're quite many, and they're small. So they're not the stem width is quite little. So you can like just dredge up a few of them, like hundreds of them, on your hand, and then you put them on that solution. Remember that you're not removing the soil that it had. So just carry it with that soil. The root should have the soil. Some will even go a mile. As you see, when the taproot is there, it's quite long. So you want it to maybe to, when you bring it to the new place, you want it to, the root to be straight. So you might want to cut off maybe the edge of the taproot, yeah? Systematically, don't just cut it off, just in a straight manner. You cut it off with scissors so that it fits itself perfectly straight on the hole that you've given it, yeah? Some, like me, I didn't put it, but you find that sometimes it might grow on the other side, just, leaning towards the left side. Transplanting should be done in the morning, early in the morning, or late in the afternoon when the sun is not as scorching as it is right now, because it will die if you do that. It will die literally. So you need to do it very early in the morning when it's cool, or late in the evening when also the temperatures are cool. The sun is not too much. Once you do the transplanting, you cover it up, and then you put some water in it. You just make sure that if you are using irrigation, irrigate the place.
Growing the chilies takes effort, time, and dedication. Karen reveals that for her, she could no longer be a telephone farmer. She had to manage her time between her day job at the University of Nairobi and her farm in Tala.
You have to put your priorities in place. I've not had a social life for around 3-4 months since I started growing them, because most of the weekends, which is usually the time, a 9 to 5, I would be out maybe socializing and whatnot. I have to be here to see how it goes. I've also had to put, because I don't have a car, I come with a mat every other time. If there are no mats, I have to panga myself. You have to find your priorities. If you want your farming business to grow, you have to be there. So you have to make time to be there. If it means taking leave, you can take leave if allowed to, because I work in a very good environment where I have maybe colleagues who would let me go on leave. So I come. During my leave time, I would come here and I will straighten things out, go back. Yeah. But during the week, I'm usually at work at my 9 to 5. The weekend, I am here up until maybe Monday morning is when I'll check out with my parents and then I'll go back to the city to work.
Chilli is very sensitive when it comes to excess water, and to some extent, it can tolerate drought. The frequency and amount of water to feed the chilli was an issue Karen struggled with initially. If the chillies are overwatered, they drown in the water and loop. If they are underwatered, on the other hand, they shrivel up and die.
Very long pipes that are connected to our tap over there that has borehole water. So the sprinkler usually does the business here. Only that it cannot fix everything. That's why I use chemicals to treat the pests once I notice that they're there.
That is indeed true. For anyone who is a chilli farmer or wants to get into chilli farming, here are some water management guidelines we have for you at every stage of chilli growth. As the chilli crops blossom and begin fruiting grape-sized fruits, Karen goes to work with her fertilizer regimen. At this point in their growth, a side dress that has a higher ratio of nitrogen is very important. Karen uses cow manure that is readily available at her shamba as her fertilizer. She reveals that cow manure is high in organic materials and rich in nutrients such as nitrogen.
Once you've already transplanted and your plant has already peaked, after your first week, you should make a timetable of the foliar that you'll be spraying on it. It will need nutrients, it will need nitrates, because ideally it needs to make fruit. It needs to make food for itself. It will need potassium, well, not for this stage. It will need nitrates at this point and calcium for the leaves and magnesium so that it looks green and it's rich, yeah? So it's growing and you're maintaining while spraying the foliar weekly or even bi-weekly, depending on how. Sometimes you have to check on how it is working. It might need to be done weekly as young as it is, and then as you move on, can make it after 2 weeks. Never more than that. You can't stay more than that.
Pests and diseases are a headache for any farmer, including Karen. As much as Karen tries to keep her farm pest-free and disease-free, the pests and diseases keep coming, and she has to find new ways to combat each one of them. One of the pests that she has had to tackle many times is caterpillars and rodents. To a caterpillar, the chilli, which has just turned red, is very attractive. It usually attacks at night or when the sun shades. During the hot weather, it hides in the base of the plant or cover behind the leaves to prevent spraying. This equally frustrates Karen, as the caterpillar will attach itself to the chilli and bore into it, only to leave it halfway, marking a loss to Karen.
You need to find a good pesticide to start them as early as possible. Interchange the pesticide, because what we've noticed is that sometimes the pest will adapt to the pesticide you're using. So you might be using the same pesticide as when you transplanted a month ago, and the pests have already adapted to it, so that it's doing nothing to them. So your plant will end up dying. As we've seen, there's caterpillars, you've seen there's thrips that usually cause it to curl up. So you're looking for those signs as the crop continues to mature. You're looking at your leaves. You want them very open. You don't want them to, like this one has started to kidogo curl in. You wouldn't know because maybe it's the sun that's causing it to shrivel, because maybe the sun, it's too much and the water is being drained out of it. But usually on a cool, calm day, you can walk around your shamba, you look at your leaves. If they've curled inwards, most of them, or even one of it has curled inward, then there's something wrong with it. There's a pest sucking it. And usually that's either aphids, there's thrips, there's several. At that point, you're checking for pest control through the leaves because the fruit has not yet come out. You're seeing, at this point, maybe a month into it, you're seeing flowers, white flowers. small white flowers that have started forming on the crop itself. So that's good. It's healthy. It's the flowers will produce the fruit itself. Yeah. So you should check the healthiness of that flower. It should be very bloomy, a small bloomy flower. It shouldn't have like this one. You see, it's already died. The plant is green, but the flower itself is a yellowish color. It's gone off. So you find that you should not have that. If you're having that, then your fruit will not prosper. There's something wrong with it. So you should either visit an agronomist, find out what's wrong with it, because usually some of these things you can't know everything that usually affects the plant. Sometimes you have to seek, you have to research through the internet. You just explain what you're seeing, and then you find that several farmers have a problem that you have. Or even when you're going to where you buy your foliar, you buy your pesticides, you explain, or even take your pictures, explain what is going on, and then they usually, the experts know what is going on. Sometimes you find that maybe the plant lacks some kind of nutrient. You find that the calcium is not enough, hence maybe the leaves are going brown, they're going yellow. They don't have magnesium. So they will give you a foliar that has micro and macro nutrients. Because micro, you find it's only nitrates, you're only treating for nitrates, and because nitrates are usually what they need when they're coming up, yeah? So you find that maybe you've neglected other things, zinc, these small things usually, and they can give you a foliar that will do that. So once you get to the flowering stage and you're seeing your flowers are being produced, then you need to give it potassium. This is something I learned very recently, because I had not treated mine with potassium. So the first fruit that came forth was quite thin. It was a fruit, yes, but it was thin compared to what was there in the market or what other farmers were producing.
Harvesting time for Karen comes calling as from 3 to 6 weeks. While chilies can be eaten at any stage, even when immature, when they would be green, purple or cream, Karen's market prefers their chilies more differently. For cayenne, Karen's market prefers them bright red, juicy and dried. When it comes to demon chilies, the market dictates glossy, smooth green with no punctures or dark spots.
So when you know it's harvest time when you see your fruit has grown 6 to 7 centimeters, it's green usually. So it depends on what you want. Do you want it red, or does the buyer want to purchase it red? That red is usually ripe. It's very ripe. The green part, when it's green, it's a good fruit. You should just check the length and the width. So it depends on what your market wants. As for me, the cayenne, my market wants it red and dried. So once I see that it is green and of a good height, like this one, so you're just waiting for this to turn to red. So you leave it in the shamba for a while. For maybe, usually from what I've studied, it takes 3 to 4 days to turn to red. Once it's already green, you find that the whole thing has turned red, or even it's trying to turn red, yeah? So that's when it's already red, it's when you harvest this one. If you wanted it green, you just harvest it green. The method of harvesting the green chili or the red one is to yank off the chili just very gently with its stem from the stalk. So usually you will use gloves, latest gloves, because sometimes you might forget and touch your face with it, or it might discolor your fingers, as we've seen, because it leaves it very dry, bristle and darkish. So you need the latex gloves or industrial gloves if that's what you want, but the industrial ones usually puncture the fruit itself, so you have to be very gentle in it. A plant will generally take 2 weeks to grow new fruit. So if I harvest this week, then I will wait 2 weeks and then it will give me more fruit. Sometimes it might be faster. You find that some grow at a faster rate. So in 1 week, they've already produced fruit, or the ones that you had not harvested because they were quite young, they've already matured up. So you find that it's a continuous thing. You find that maybe in a week's time, you'll still have fruit that was remaining from the last week that was not quite matured. So for chili, you can't wait for it to just be uniform red or uniform green. You usually remove what you need. A plant can be harvested for 3 to 5 months, depending on how you keep the plant itself.
Drying the chilies is commonly regarded as a great way to maintain bumper harvests and intensify the flavor of the chilies. For Karen, drying the chilies properly is crucial for her market, as this sets the stage for her clients' processing. Therefore, she has to dry them the right way. She reveals that she air dries her cayenne chilies in a warm and ventilated environment such as this one. This ensures that as her chilies dry, they are not exposed to humid conditions which would later expose them to mold and the likes.
Since we use resources that are available to us, I have a makeshift dryer, sun dryer that I usually use. So once we pick the ripe chili, the red ripe chili, we usually use buckets, the 20-liter buckets. My casuals, we usually come with it to the shamba. They will put on their gloves and they will pick the fruit. After Ndunge is full, you come and put it at the area where we do the drying. It's a raft. It's usually a drying raft. You can use mosquito net if you want as a bed, or you can buy the industrial net. You just take the fruit to the raft, you spread it all around there so that it just dries up. And then your raft should have something that to cover it up in case, like for the rainy times, you need something that will cover up your fruit. You should make sure that the conditions are, there's air circulation in that room. Any conducive environment for mold to grow in would render your chili useless. For example, if you put it in an area where there is humidity or there's no enough air circulation or there's water, you find that your chili will soak up that water, and then the humidity will also give it the correct conditions for mold to grow in, and that's how your produce just goes down.
Drying the chilies was one of the challenges that Karen faced early on. Today, there are other challenges that she has faced and braved to see a brighter day ahead for herself and her future.
For my first harvest, I had around 150 kgs. And what people don't know about the exporting market is that when you take it to the exporter, they will look for the good fruit, and then the rest they will tell you, find a way to use it. And usually the first fruit you can't say it will be 100% perfect. You usually just correct the second and the third fruit, usually the correct version of the first one. I had to sell my first loot for a very low rate. I think I sold it for 50 bob at a time, for a 50 bob per kg. At a time it was going for 100 per kg. Remember, this is Demon. This is supposed to be creme de la creme. It has taken up a huge chunk of my money by me fertilizing it every week, doing this and that. So selling it at a lower rate would mean no profits for me. And that is only done because you find that the middlemen, they will give you their own price because you can't go back with something that you've already harvested.
Behind every dark cloud is a silver lining. This is a quote Karen holds true for her. Without the challenges she has faced finding a market, drying her chilies among others, they would not have paved the way for her success today.
Benefits is the profits are quite good. A 20 kg bag alone is around, for cayenne, if it's dried, it will be around 3,000 bob, if I'm not wrong. 3,000 for a bag of maize, for a bag of 90,000. You weigh the options. A small quantity can give you a good amount, and if you're doing it weekly and you're getting 3,000 weekly, then in a month's time you've gotten a substantial amount of money that can help you run the farm and also give you a little bit for yourself to grow yourself also. So the profits are good. This is why we are calling it marketed farming. I think we're targeting a market that is there, or there's something lacking in the market. So you use that information to plant something that you know will return your investment.
Market is crucial for any farmer, including Karen. Throughout our interview, Karen has emphasized repeatedly how important market is and how it posed a challenge to a beginner farmer such as herself. Karen reveals that she has two types of market, local and international market. Each market demands a certain pedigree and timing to her chili farming, and she would not have it any other way.
You need to have known your market before you start the planting, or you know where you're going to take your harvest before you plant. I sought two companies that would like red chili provided for them and sign contract for me to grow them and produce to them. Of course, this can be, it depends on what negotiations you will make with the companies. For example, there are very many companies that produce sauces, chili sauces, hot and sweet, cayenne powder, or any chili powder. They want to contract farmers so that they grow the produce for them and then produce to them. So you can sign contracts with them and give them a specific price, a market price. Usually they will come with their own price, but you will give them a specific price. You can settle on a price as early as then lock in the contract, or you can say the price would be a market price when your produce is already ready. So for example, if I didn't give a fixed price, for now the price for, let's say, for the cayenne, because it's not it's not a dry season, so you find that the drying part usually takes longer. So you find that it will be around 150 shillings per kg. If I signed before, when it was maybe dry, you find that maybe they will have said 100 per kg or even 130 per kg. So if it's fixed, then you will have to go with that 130 kg. But you find that maybe the times will change, the climate will change, you don't know whether the fruit will be there, so it goes down. It can be a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
One of the local markets that Karen retails to, apart from Marikiti Market, is the famous Tala Market, a few kilometers from Karen's shamba. We speak to one of the traders in the market, Rose Kaluki, who reveals that timing is everything when it comes to the business. Like Karen, she has to time the local market around Machakos to ensure that her retailed chilies thrive and do not shrivel away her anticipated profits.
Pilipili wakati tunauza msimu huu wa mvua haikuangi na pesa, inakuwa nyingi sababu watu wengi wanapanda ya mvua, ile sio ya kunyenyeshea maji. Sasa tunauza kilo 20, saa zingine 30, lakini wakati wa kiangazi tunapanda ile ya kunyunyizia maji. Sasa hiyo inakuanga na pesa, inatoka kilo 80 hivi, inakuanga tu namna hiyo. Sasa inakuanga na faida kwa mkulima. Ikiwa sio msimu wa mvua, utapanda nyingi msimu wa mvua sababu bei iko chini. Na wakati wa kiangazi hata unapanda nyingi na kuletea pesa.
For Grace Macau, a farmer similar to Karen and a trader at Tala Market, the situation is the same. She explains that what has enabled her to thrive during low seasons is building a neat customer base.
Wakati wa mvua chili inakuwa kwa haraka, lakini wakati wa jua tunawekelea chili maji, inaenda polepole ndio ikue. Sasa hii kukua kwa polepole inaenda ikiachana kwa soko. Sasa utapata ingine imekuwa polepole na ingine imeenda haraka haraka wakati wa mvua. Kwa hivyo kuna tofauti ya kuwekelea na maji na tofauti ya mvua.
As Karen looks to the future, there are many things she would like to accomplish before hitting third floor and even in the years to come after that. One of them is to strategically ensure that she is contributing towards the first 2 sustainable development goals: no poverty and zero hunger. She believes that each effort counts, whether it is individually or corporately.
My future goals is to, first of all, just get my company running, also contribute to one of the SDG 4 goals for food security. I believe one small crop might go a long way. For example, this chili will maybe create cayenne pepper, which also is used in food items here and there. It can also give a sustainable living to my casuals or the people I hire to maintain my crops. So you find that in one way or another, what I'm doing here will help very many people, and I'd want it to grow. So I'd want this to become a food company where I not only produce chili but other plants, other vegetables in particular. I'm looking into capsicum, I'm looking into courgettes, depending on the market that I will get or where I will see the need, I might start on it. But for now, we're starting with chili, and we hope that it will give us the profits that we are trying to chase.
One of the things Karen would have told her younger self is to dig deeper than the surface and seek more information that she has deemed necessary when it comes to chilies farming and the agribusiness world locally and internationally. Today, this is the same piece of advice she gives to any aspiring and current chilies farmer.
Words of advice to anybody who wants to get into farming: be patient, be very patient. It does not come, Rome was not built in a day. You will have very many obstacles. You will think of giving up, letting that shamba just stay on its own and leaving it, count your losses and move on. but be patient. Try as much as possible to see the future as opposed to seeing what problem you have there at that point. If it's ladies, please don't think that your manicure is not. Be prepared to maybe just look shabby for a while. Not even shabby. Embrace the farming attire or whatever it is. Sometimes you just go with the flow. If you look shaggy, look shaggy. Continue with it. It will bear off. As in you have to sometimes let go of something in order to gain a bigger thing in the end. Research. Don't take one word from one person. Do your own research first and then visit a couple of people, then take what is maybe given by majority of them. Because sometimes you might get one person is maybe pushing a product to you because they are stakeholders in that company or something else. So make sure you've visited several agronomists or experts, having done your own research, having researched what other farmers have been doing and if it has worked for them, and whether your crop can be suited for it. So you get advice from several people and take what is being done by, you use your gut instinct.